Welcome to LG Transparent Conversations, the traveling podcast series powered by LG Electronics USA that brings crucial conversations about student-athlete mental health directly to campuses and beyond. I'm Cari Champion, and today we are at the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. Today's topic is striking out stigma, softball stars rallying for student-athlete mental health. I'm thrilled to be joined today by our panelists, Gipson Chamberlain, Jocelyn Alo, and Michaela Edenfield. So excited for yet again another beautiful, honest, authentic, LG transparent conversation surrounding mental health. I think it's really important that LG is doing this because life is good. It's not just a tagline. We want our lives to be good. I am here with some amazing women who've accomplished so much at such a young age, and there's still so much to do. But one of the big things we should talk about, especially in sport, women's sport, is mental health. And I'm curious, and I'll start with you first, Lauren. Tell me about why, in your opinion, it is so important to talk about mental health in the softball community.
My opinion is that it hasn't been talked about. Like, I think I was maybe on the end of the stigma where it was like, we don't talk about this because it's a weak topic. Like, you can't feel these feelings. So now I think it's important to talk about it and continue the conversation. So it's just commonplace when you talk about mental health, because it's just like, if you hurt your knee or you hurt your shoulder, you can hurt your brain and need to heal that as well.
When you say you were on the tail end of it because there was a stigma, which we are trying to strike out today with said conversation, what do you mean by that? Give me an example of perhaps a time in which you felt like you didn't have it all, you couldn't bring your best, but you didn't want to share because as an athlete, you're taught to be a gladiator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started in college. I mean, mental health's always been a thing in the course of my life, but I guess I didn't really have a definition of it. We didn't really talk about it. So it was like, oh, I'm just feeling weird. I don't know what this is. But then when I got to college, it was, there's such a pressure of like perfection. And especially at these high level institutions, it's like you have to be on your best, performing your best every single day. And so I think when you show up to the facility, at least in my experience, I felt like you show up and you enter the gate to the softball complex and it's like game face on, you can't feel anything. Like it was like, you're here to perform and this is your job. That it feels like a job when you're in college. So that was the first kind of, okay, hide my feelings because it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I have to get it done on the field no matter what, because we're chasing a championship. Like it's just, that's the focus the entire time. So that made it kind of feel like a weak spot. Like if you were struggling at all, or if it even goes into like physical health too. I mean, mental, physical, it all tails in. But when you were hurt, you were like, no, don't go to the training room. You know what I mean? Like you're like, don't go to the training room because.
Okay, wait, help me understand. If both of you just agreed with her. If you're hurt, don't go to the training room.
Which is wild, right? Because you're supposed to, you're hurt, you're supposed to get help for that. But at the same time, you were like, no, I can't lose my spot. I can't appear weak. I don't want to seem like I'm the baby in the training room. And that affects your mental because you're trying to push through injury. I mean, there's so many things that spin off of mental health in that aspect, especially in collegiate sports. So this conversation is extremely important.
I appreciate your candor and how honest you are. Really, I do. It's that to me, and I know for other people who are listening, athletes are like, yes, of course. But because Michaela, you right away agreed. Do you still feel that way? I know you're coming off.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
We're like let's talk about
tough.
it.
Yeah. I mean, like I might as well pull the cat out of the bag. I broke my finger this season from frustration, and like we're talking about mental health, and like. Right after I did that, like I knew I messed up. I knew something wasn't right in my finger, and immediately, like I didn't go straight into my trainer's lap. Like I was trying to figure out on my own, and then figure out like what was I going to do the next pitch? Will I be able to throw the ball back to my pitcher in between this next inning? And I wasn't able to. So I had to do what was right and was to pull myself out because I respect the game. I don't want it to be like I don't want to be playing like I don't respect it because of my injury. So I think in a sense that like not wanting to be babied, not wanting to like be like the problem is like something, especially like with women's sports, that like we see a lot of like, it's a little judgmental. Like if either you're the baby and you're consistently the baby, or like you have to be this like top notch, like always on game. And it's just like, it's super difficult to stay that way like all the time. And I was just thinking right after I broke my finger, like what got me to that moment? Because it's not the game. I was doing fine performance-wise. Like what brought all of those emotions together for that incident to happen, for me to realize like, this is where I'm really at. And I think, again, like, it's not one of those things I wish it didn't happen, of course, but like, it's always a lesson to be learned. And I'm grateful for the experience, just because like, I know moving forward that I'm going to have to be like a little bit more consistent with myself, and like how I can like stay in tune with like my emotions, both like in the game and outside the game. So
now I know, literally, for lack of a better term, inside baseball, but you said you broke your finger out of frustration. Talk to me about that frustration and why there was no outlet, and why was that the end result?
Yeah, like, it's super tough, right? Like, you're playing high level ball with a bunch of other girls all over the country. Not everyone's like brought up the same. Not everyone sees eye to eye the same. And so sometimes having like tough conversations with your teammates can be pretty difficult. So it's hard to have like a consistent release, because if you release too much to the coaches or to your trainers or to the outside, right, then you're like victimizing yourself in a sense. So it becomes into this piece where you feel like you have to bear and compartmentalize. Thank you for filling me in. And try to like navigate that on your own and be able to do all of that. And I think there was a lot of things going outside of softball in that moment in time that was like making me like really upset, wanting to be the best I could for the team, wanting to become a leader, not feeling like I was being seen as a leader on the team, but being seen that way, like from the coaching staff, and just trying to navigate that like was super, super frustrating. And I didn't let anyone in on like how I was feeling at that moment in time. And that's like, you know, it's one foul swoop. Like, I bought my helmet on a water cooler, and the next thing I know, like I've got a broken finger, and now I have to like plan and navigate like what to do next and face it for what it is.
So human though.
Yeah.
Like, so human, but
Can
when
you
you're an athlete, it's
a normal thing, but athletes are not taught to be
zoomed
human.
in. Yep.
Can you relate?
Totally. When I think of mental health, I think of that sophomore year. I feel like everybody goes through a sophomore slump. And like, when I think back, it wasn't even really a sophomore slump. I was still hitting .398 with 16 home runs, but it wasn't the season that everybody had wanted me to have. And it was like, oh, you need to hit 40 bombs this next year. And I kept putting that unnecessary pressure on myself. And I was even like talking with my parents, and I felt like they weren't really seeing me either. And I was like, dude, like, I'm struggling. And my dad's just like, dude, you just have to get through it. You just have to get through it. Like, stop being a baby and just get through it. And I'm like, dude, I'm really struggling. And thankfully Coach had seen that, and Coach Gasso is super big on her mental health too, and our mental health as well. So I'm thankful that I have a coach that can see those things before they get progressively worse. So she sat me down after Baylor one weekend and was like, look, you're not going to play this weekend. You're not going to practice with us this week. You are just going to take this whole week off and see if you actually want to continue to play softball. And of course I fought her on it. I'm sure everybody's going to fight her on it. I'm like, no, just give me more reps. Just give me more reps. I just need to get back in there. Like, I promise I'll good. And then week went by, and I was like, dang, that week I totally needed to reset. And after that, I never took the game for granted again. And I was just happy to be back out there with my friends, and to just not take the game so seriously, because the game is literally just a game at the end of the day. And some people make it their whole lives, and it's like, if I do good in the game, then I'm going to have a good life. And it's like, it's not like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Everything you guys are saying is expectations.
Yeah.
She said, Jocelyn, you said, I didn't have the season that
everyone else wanted me to have.
Who is everyone else?
Literally, like,
all those Twitter
media
trolls.
outlets, Twitter people, even my own thoughts getting wrapped up in it too. And I'm like, shoot, should I be having this season, you know? And, you know, everybody has their ups and downs in seasons. And I've thankfully come now to realize that you're going to have your great seasons, you're going to have your crap seasons. But at the end of the day, softball's still going to be there. And it's a game. Just enjoy it while you have it.
Lauren, you have, and I look at you looking at Jocelyn, because I know you know exactly what she's going through.
Oh my gosh.
You're like, hold on, let me finish your thought. I can tell you exactly who you're talking about.
Literally.
When you have this perspective, how does it make you feel? Do you see the game differently? Do you wish you would have played with less mental pressure on yourself?
Yeah, and I think I would have realized, or I wish I would have realized a little sooner, that the unrealistic expectations that our surroundings or people or the media or even our coaches, our family, even ourselves, like that warps how you view yourself and what you come to expect of yourself. So it gets a little wonky in your head sometimes because you're like, wait, I should be perfect. And it's those strikeouts become a lot bigger in your brain, and or those errors on the field become a lot bigger in your brain. Or if you're not meeting that stat, when you can think back to like some of your best years, you weren't worried about that. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't care what my stats are. Like, I don't care as long as we got a W on the board. So I wish I mean, all of us could go back and be like, I would start over and just really not care so much. Like, I just really wouldn't care so much. I'd probably stay off of social media a little bit too, but
It's interesting that you say that. So Caitlin Clark says the other day, as she is, struggling in her rookie season, still playing. Stats are great. We're talking about stats are still good.
So good still.
But the team is not getting their W's. It's just a tough season. And she was like, I'm off of social media. Michaela, are you off of social media?
Yeah, I think it's something you have to think about. In all seriousness, like now with NIL, like social media is like a huge platform for a majority, especially female athletes. Like, we take a look at NIL spread that's just different from male to female perspective. Like, you see females doing a lot more clothing, makeup, like a little bit more of like a modeling sense versus like with guys, like they still do the modeling as well, but there's a different approach to it. And I think we talked about it once upon a time with Kocha, like just talking about like kind of sex sales type of thing, and like we're talking about like what is okay to post, what, like how do we want to present ourselves, that's like number one, just being like keeping it real, also having fun, keeping it a nice structure, and also like making our audience happy all at the same time. So I think it's a lot. It's a lot. So it's like social media is a tough one. Like, there's always going to be people that are going to have a lot of things to say about you, like both good and bad. And I've seen like a bunch of it just within this past year with my finger, with the recent thing that got posted with me and Devin, like a lot of people taking things out of proportion. And I think like the biggest thing I could say to myself, like something that helps me sleep better at night, is just to know that like they're not a part of my circle. That's that's not my circle. That's not my people. I don't care about their opinions because why should I? It
sounds like, and we've been talking about this obviously from a media perspective, the job of a student athlete is a job. It's a real job. You guys have to work now, especially with NIL, and it's hard to navigate safe spaces. Jocelyn, talk to me about how you do that and protect your mental health. It seems to me that if everyone has access to all of you socially, and then obviously you say NIL, Michaela talks about NIL, you got to get paid. You're going to read the responses. It's naturally human.
Totally.
How do you navigate safe spaces to protect your mental?
I know at the end of the day that the people that genuinely want to see me succeed, whether I play softball or not, and I don't really view myself, obviously I'm a professional softball player, but like the people in my circle view me as so much more than just my profession. They see me as Jocelyn Alo, the person who is a Disney adult, who loves Harry Potter, all the good things.
Loud and proud.
Totally. Loud and proud, baby. But they just see me for so much more than just a player, and I'm so appreciative for that. And also at the end of the day too, like I love to make little connections here and there with fans, and sometimes, especially here, it can get very overwhelming. But at the end of the day too, I have to know that I'm a human, and sometimes when I get overwhelmed, it's like, okay, I need to just step back a little bit. I need to take a breath because there's a lot of people coming up to me right now. But I just know at the end of the day too that I'm a human, and I need to do what I need to do for myself in order to make sure that I'm good.
How comfortable are you discussing the protection of your peace and mental health with fans and using your platform to talk about that?
Sometimes it's pretty tough because sometimes as fans, they feel like you as the athlete owe them something. And just from a player's perspective, like I don't feel like I owe a fan anything. You came to watch me play. You came to watch me drop a couple bombs, and I did that. And I just need to decompress now from the game because it can get so overwhelming with, okay, she's got this going on here. What's next? I'm always kind of thinking of what next, and it's hard to like just kind of have the energy to talk for 3 hours after games to fans. And it can be a lot for sure, but I definitely do want to know want people to know that I do genuinely like making those connections with, especially those little 10-year-olds. That's like their life dream to meet you, you know, and even your 10-second interaction with them, like I always just try to be a good person, but I know when it's time for me to, all right, like I've done my good for the day. Like I need to go decompress for the night. I need to just chill and I need to go talk to my people. First person I call is my boyfriend. I'm like, hey, I ain't talked to you all day, man. What's up?
What's up? What you doing?
Right.
You up? Lauren, I asked her that question, and I love your face. And this is why I love this, that you can see this podcast. You're like, do you tell your fans I need to chill out? How do you feel about that? Is that impossible?
I'll tell you a story. There was a situation, it wasn't last year, it was the year before, here at the World Series. And this is just how out of context things can get and how crazy social media can be on a situation. But I had strep, and I didn't figure out that I had strep throat until later that night. But I was just feeling terrible at the game, terrible. And sometimes they'll have security down there just to make sure that, you know, fans aren't coming up in the middle of the game trying to get autographs. It's like they kind of keep the peace. And one of the security guards escorted me up the stairs, and there was a security guard behind me that had turned away a couple fans because I'm like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. It's hot. It gets hot here at the World Series. And I'm leaving, don't really see the interaction until I'm on Facebook later that night, and under my post where I had thanked, because we had a couple autograph signings across the street, and we were interacting with fans all day, so there was that interaction. But that split second of that fan getting turned away by a security led to her mom coming on and saying that I personally was so rude. I disrespected her daughter to her face. I couldn't have been ruder. I mean, it was just this like, that did not happen. I mean, I physically did not see these people. So it's just, and that got so much attention. And there were other people that were chiming in like, no way. Like, I thought she was nice. Like, oh, now I know, you know, it just starts this like weird conversation. And then my mom's coming on Facebook and I'm like, Mom, chill out. But it's just, it paints the picture of like, number one, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. You have no idea. And did I know I was going to test positive for strep throat? No, but clearly I was out of sorts heading up the stairs. But number one, you don't know what's going on. And then number two, you just can't believe everything you read. You don't know what's going to go on social media. And then how that affects you and that pressure where it's like, I didn't even see these people and it turned into a mess, you know? Like I wasn't even physically there. I don't remember the interaction, but that made me feel like I have to be better the next time when I really was just trying my best. So it kind of creates that pressure situation for us to not have a negative comment on Facebook, you know?
Michaela, you just mentioned, you know, earlier, and it reminds me of this exact story of how people were taking out of context perhaps what was going on with you and your finger and Devin, and you wanted to weigh in, but you can't. How do you, in that instance, in all of these instances where someone is attacking your character, literally say, this is not who I am, I cannot engage? I don't know if there is a how-to, but that's why we're having these conversations.
Yeah, there's never like the perfect solution to it, because once it gets into the public's opinion, like it's gone to like the waste. You just don't, there's no reason to try to convince like thousands of people like why you're right, because as soon as you say this is the reason why I'm right, someone's going to be like, she's posting it because she's wrong and she's trying to like prove that she's right. And it's like, it becomes this whole like mind game. And I think the big thing is like understanding like where I stand and just trying to be vulnerable on my ends of things and letting that out there. Like I know for a fact I put something out there with the issue that came around with Devin in that post. Like a lot of people.
Do you mind sharing like specifics for those who don't know?
Yeah. So the first game against OU, I want to say it was the 5th inning, bottom of the 5th. We had Maddie Balk, our pitcher, on the mound. Had a couple wild pitches. Wanted to take the timeout, come up, talk to her, let her breathe. And I love Maddie, and like me and her go way back. We call her Peanut, but she's allergic to peanuts, that's why. But super sweet girl, but she has performance anxiety. And as her catcher, like I just want to give her like the best chance to succeed. Like that's my girl. And I think at that moment in time, a lot of things going on. We were like 1 run away from being run ruled, but like also still super competitive. Like I'm not going to give up until like it's done, Correct. You know? So I go up, I'm like, hey, give me some space. I did come on pretty strong. My hand was like all the way up, like saying like, hey, back up. Like I just want it just to be me and her.
But
and
you also have to in those situations. It's loud. Like there's
it's
so
loud,
much
the
going on. You're
environment.
like, girl, like back. It's okay. I got this. Like you have to be direct.
Yeah. Just like, and wanting to have that moment. And then Devin, like our second baseman, probably one of the smartest softball players I've had the chance to play with, like super smart girl. Typically, like when we do call time, like we've met like as a group around the circle, which works for a majority of our pitching staff. They don't mind that. I just thought I'd let Maddie breathe a little bit. And so the whole situation kind of blew up because people thought me and Devin were getting into it on the field because Devin came up into like our circle and I was like, hey, like I just want to talk to her. Like I just want to talk to her.
Let me
like,
just have this moment.
Yeah. And so like that's not what happened. Okay, fine. Like whatever it is, I addressed like the issue, talked to Maddie Bogg, trying to motivate her, trying to get her ready for the next pitch because that's all that matters is the next pitch. And you think that's like what matters until like 2 hours later and like a clip like that gets posted on social media and then like you get people coming at you from all sorts of angles. There's a lot of people talked about like my leadership in that instance, but a lot of people talked bad about my teammate. And the last thing I want everyone to know is that I think disrespect towards my teammate is like allowed. And so I thought I was going to give my piece on it. I took a little screenshot of a comment that I appreciated on that post. And I said, don't go disrespecting number 9. And I put like a little comment like below it saying like, hey, just like a quick reminder, like media can like shift the way we perceive things and go Knowles. And I think just having like kind of have to play the cards kind of right, but having like a basic statement of like how you feel and like just trying to handle it with as much class as I could because there's no reason to get too into it, right? Just put it out there, let people know how I feel. Like Devin knows how I felt. Like we've had conversations, continue to have conversations. So that's all that matters. Again, like at the end of the day, like I know who really matter. Like those are my close people, my teammates, like my family, my boyfriend. Like that's what matters to me.
I think this conversation is a very common conversation for women in sports. I do not believe if I was sitting with 3 players in the NBA, someone would be like, unless you punch a player during practice. But other than that, like there's nobody that's gonna hold another male player accountable for trying to get his teammate together.
Just communicating.
In short.
Mm-hmm.
How does that upset you? How does that make you feel? I don't want to say upset. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But how does it make you feel, Jocelyn?
I just feel like sometimes it does get pretty annoying sometimes. Like, come on, we're still in that narrative. It's 2024. Like, we're really dogs out there. We really do this.
That's
like,
right.
Caitlin Clark is out here doing it. No one else is, you know what I mean? Angel Reese out here dogging people, you know what I mean? And sometimes, like, with the narrative of just being a woman athlete, it's like, dude, we're so capable of doing the same great things that male athletes can do. I remember I was just played with Savannah Bananas, and they were like, just kind of, what's your mindset kind of going into the box? And I was like, I'm a dog at the end of the day. And these guys are not throwing it, you're like, here you go, because you're a girl, here you go. No, they're throwing it 95 at me. And they like to see that, like, dog mentality out of a girl. They said it's not something we see often, but they applauded it. So thankful for them. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're dogs, we're women, and we can do great things as well.
See, and it feeds into itself like all over again to like where we talk about like having dog mentalities. Like it's something I face like a problem with my own team, like where people hate confrontation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like with male sports, like we get like you see 2 guys getting into one another's face, like it's not a big deal.
Not a big
deal. But now if 2 women do that, it's a cat fight.
Yes.
It's headlines at that point. So I think like the biggest thing is like how can we continue like again pass the torch to make sure like the next generation of softball players, women athletes in general, like understand that they don't have to like conform themselves to like do certain things that is feminine. You know, that's not the reality. Someone like a long time ago said, this is what makes you feminine. Okay. Well, that's not the same today and it shouldn't be. So,
well, and especially in sports, sports are sports. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man playing a sport. It's a sport and it brings out certain emotions in you. And you have to work the same and you get the same outcome regardless if you're a man or a male or a female. So it's always interesting to me, but it goes back to what you were talking about on social media where it's like how we look, how we talk, how we act, how we move. And there's just such a different standard and expectation for women. We got to pay attention to so many other things. But I love now that we have the right people, and media is a big part in that, of just stopping that conversation. It's like, we don't even have to talk about that. Like when they were pinning up Angel and Caitlin, and it's like
not happening on my watch.
That's what I'm saying. Like we're going to move on to a different topic in this segment.
Yeah.
Like there's just nothing to talk about here. And I think having powerful women like you in that seat to be like, let's just keep it pushing. Like there is no conversation here. You know,
we were talking about striking out stigma, and I think all of this is related. So give me a minute as I try to search through it. We see these powerful. You women are powerful in your own right. And I'm not even getting into the aesthetics of the beauty and how you carry yourself. That's just another form of power that you all have. That's wonderful. But yes, and I also am a dog. Yes, and I also am this. And the stigma that women have to play sports that in a way that makes the audience that doesn't even really know the sport comfortable really bothers me. That was the conversation with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and what Angel Reese did to Caitlin. I'm like, it is your rite of passage to talk if you lose.
Right,
like I
totally.
can talk. Like I don't know if we can curse. You might have to take that out. But I am.
Life's good, LG. Life is good.
Life is good. But it is your rite of passage to talk trash to anybody. Once you win, you get that W,
Yes.
especially a championship. I'm in your face. I'm telling you what it is. If we see men do that, it's not a problem.
And celebrated.
It's celebrated. It is something that they allow. And I want to know, with your individual platforms, how do you think you can help change that? In terms of the stigma that you can't be a dog and yes, also that. Because that's a part of the mental health conversation. That gets you. Angel said you saw her cry. She was like, I won a championship and it's been the worst season of my
Ever.
life. Of my young
Ever.
life. I'll be damned if at 21 years old or 20 years old, anything you do on the court defines who you are as a woman.
Totally.
So you have to be able to use your platform to change that conversation, because it's mental too. It broke her down. How do you feel about that, Jocelyn? When people don't feel it, like, can you help with that with your platform? Do you feel safe in this space doing that?
I totally do, especially in the softball world. I feel like, at least now, you see more emotion in the sport, and I love seeing the emotion in the sport. I love seeing Michaela freaking fist pump after she throws someone out. You know, I love seeing Lauren, coming around first base. You know what I mean? And people just stomping, just knowing that they've worked hard to be in this moment, and it's okay to show that emotion. And I think just being in the professional realm too, and it's still a building sport, you know, but I think we have the right people that are still playing, building it, and that are continuing to push the sport forward and recognize that this sport was not the same as it was when Michelle Smith was playing, when Lisa Fernandez was playing. And I give props to them, because the game wouldn't be the game if it weren't for those great athletes that came before us. But the game has changed, and there's so much more media and attention behind it. You almost have to show that emotion. Like, we are freaking proud to be softball players.
Let's normalize the emotion of being a dog and being somebody who just gets after it.
100%.
For women.
And also being able to like step off and put on some heels and
Let's also
and look
normalize
good.
that.
And
And
you know
let's
what I'm
also
saying?
do
It's
that.
like there isn't. It's
Yes,
exactly.
and.
It's yes and. It's exactly what you talked about. I think being unapologetically yourself and doing it and just making the decision to just not care. Like, you have to go there with yourself and be like, I have to choose that I love the people that love me, and I have my circle, and those are the opinions that matter. I think if you keep that in your focus, and then everything else is just kind of noise.
Lauren, how does a breakdown look for you? And I don't want to say a mental breakdown, but
Ooh.
when it's too
I'm like,
heavy.
you want the tea?
I want to
Spill.
know, and that's for this question for all of you. If you can go around the table and answer it, I want to know, like, when you get to that breaking point, because sometimes the pressure is too much, because the criticism is too much, because the observations of who people think you are can be too much. What does that look like for you, and how do you recover?
It gets pretty ugly for me. I go inward when I get mental. Like, if I'm very, and so OCD like happens for me. And that came after I stopped playing, which was interesting. It was like, I retired, I hung up my cleats, and then all of a sudden I was like, what do I do with my time? And then it was like, I started paying attention to things. I'm like, what is going on? But I think it's that battle with your mind sometimes, like, where you're just like, does anybody else think the way I think? Or like the weird thoughts that come in, intrusive thoughts, things like that. Like, if I'm not getting sunlight, or if I'm like hermiting too much, or if I'm not getting around my people, if I'm like pulling too far inward, it gets weird up there. But you can always tell with me, if I have a breakdown, it's a lot of tears. Oh, I cry. You won't see me for a while. Sometimes it's hard. I'll be real. Sometimes it's hard to like get up and take a shower, like, or just get out of bed sometimes. Like, that's real. If you deal with any type of depression or anxiety, it's like, sometimes it's just like, I want to lay in bed and I don't want to get out of bed. But I think I've put enough in place because I have, bonus kids. I've got a husband and I've got family and I've got responsibility and I have a job. And there's things that as a person in society, you have to get up every day and you do it because it's not just all about you. So I think when that mental health hits and it does feel like it's just the Lauren show, it's all about Lauren, it's pulling myself out of that, putting some boundaries in place with myself so that it's like, okay, feel this and get through this. And then we got to keep it pushing.
Do you feel like, and I want to bring it back to the Lauren who felt like if she injured herself, she couldn't go to the training room. Do you think today you'd walk right in the training room and be like, I need some help?
That would be a little, I don't know if I'm still a little too old school, but honestly, yeah, I destigmatizing that in my brain of, if you're injured, you're injured. If I need to talk to my therapist, it's not weak. Like, if I need to go get another therapist because this therapist isn't working, if we need to go to marriage counseling, or if we need to do this, it's to help. Like, it's not ever to hurt, it's to help.
You're just so dope. I fool with you heavy. I don't know if you almost
I know. I love you. I'm so happy
we're
doing this.
I almost got in trouble again. Another word.
So
let me get my I fool with you. Michaela, question for you. Same question. What does it look like? Yeah. Because I could feel the energy of like, I'm tired of this. You know what I mean? And you should be. And you should be if you're being criticized or people are misunderstanding your character and who you are. What does that look like and how do you bring yourself back?
Yeah, like I definitely agree. I go very like introvert and I go into my shell until my that shell rattles and then I explode. So like I go like off of one spectrum, like one end of the spectrum to the other, and just like trying to like battle those emotions. Like again, like my finger, like how did I get to that point? That was my breaking point. Like why did I let it get there? Well, what was everything like leading up to that point? And like who do you think I went to talk to that about? My therapist, And I think like that's something that took a lot of vulnerability, and I didn't have that. Like going into college, I had just lost my grandfather that was like my biggest father figure in my life, and right after losing him, like I got COVID, wasn't able to like practice with the team for like all of my first fall, and I redshirted. So like people didn't even know whether I was going to be good or not, to be honest. They didn't know if I was going to last like the next semester. So like hitting those extremely low points, like I had to a point where I just cry. And then like I have to remind myself things that I do that aren't softball related, that aren't around a certain group of people that make me happy. Like what's something that I can go back to? I love the movie Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, oh my God, it's my favorite movie on repeat.
I absolutely adore that movie. I used to watch it with my mom growing up.
Yeah.
I will watch that. That is my feel-good movie.
Yeah, and mine too when I go to bed. I love that movie. Yeah. You guys have to watch it. Plug. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Absolutely. And then it goes into like me as a woman, like I want to feel beautiful, and we go through, every woman goes through that moment
Cinderella
of like
story.
Everyone like has that moment where they're like, man, I look awful right now. Like I look like complete dog, like, and it is what it is. You kind of have to like deal with it, and you're like, okay, what can I actually do to like change how I feel about that? And I know growing up, again, I keep telling all these stories, but like I got bullied, right? I watched RuPaul's Drag Race. I mean, inspirational. Mm-hmm. I mean, they take the stage with this confidence and this aura, and I wanted that. As like a 12-year-old who was getting bullied by just because I have curly hair and I'm mixed in the area I'm from, like, what else am I supposed to do? Okay, so like taking that in, I was like, makeup, like that could be fun. And then got into makeup. Then like I was a closet makeup person because I wasn't that good yet. My mom wouldn't let me out of the house. And then eventually it was like, I would wear my makeup to like softball camps growing up, where me and my mom like made it this like tagline of my war paint. So it's like I couldn't leave the house without my eyebrows and my winged eyeliner. For all my 2016 girlies that are stuck in that dip brow, like that stage was real. But no, I mean, like it goes through, like for me personally, it goes to like what is something like the identity crisis piece of like softball. And I know a lot of girls I played with growing up, like they talk about it like they're hitting their post softball and they have no idea what to do.
They don't know who they are.
They don't know anything. And I'm super grateful that I've had the experiences I've had, because it allows me to be a more well-rounded person and understand that like softball is not me. I'm a Michaela Edenfield and people might know me as Area 51, but like that's great and all, but like I'm also still like Michaela. I'm a daughter. I'm a granddaughter. And I'm like, and I just happen to be a decent athlete. So, you know, like it's just like one of those things.
I love this conversation because I twice have heard therapy, and I am such an advocate for therapy. There is nothing wrong or weak about that. I love that you have the access to that, and it also helps you define something you just talked about. Who am I outside of playing this sport? Jocelyn, do you believe in therapy? Do you have a therapist?
Totally. I just got into it this past year.
Welcome.
Right.
Welcome.
It's great. Just having someone to talk to that doesn't know anything about your stats, doesn't even know who you are. Literally, you're just another person that comes in, and for them to just be so real with you. And it's like, you know, maybe you need to think back on that. It wasn't as serious as you thought it was, and really kind of dumbing things down for me, I would say. But yeah, I do love it. And I think that it's definitely helped me, especially with this transition from college to professional, because to be quite honest, when I got to professional, it wasn't all that I thought it was going to be when you are going to become a professional. You know, when everybody kind of is like, oh, I'm going to go be a professional. It wasn't all that I thought it was. And I had a hard time with differentiating Jocelyn Alo at Oklahoma and Jocelyn Alo now a Viper at the time. And it was a tough transition. And even that first year out of school, and it's like, I have all this free time. Like, do I just stay in bed and just chill all day? Or should I be working out? Like, should I be pick up a new hobby or something? Like, I definitely didn't want to throw a ball or hit a ball, that's for sure. But it was just such a weird time for me. Just, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what I liked right outside of school too. And yeah, it was tough, but thankfully therapy had helped me just kind of figure that out, and me just trying new things. I got into makeup my sophomore year, and I just started doing it more.
The brows are browing. Did you do your brow?
I did.
They look great.
Good.
Brows
Always
look
looks
good.
good.
Okay.
I love a good fluffy brow.
I love a good fluffy brow.
But I'm also super into cooking and baking, and something that I never did in college ever. I was freaking door dashing everything. But now I like to cook and bake, and I've come to find out more about who I am and what I like to do. So definitely grateful for therapy.
I tell you what, everything that I'm hearing now is I'm learning who I am outside of this sport. That is difficult for anybody outside of any front-facing profession where people identify you by what you do. It's difficult for anybody. And there is this period where you are depressed and perhaps asking yourself, because when you leave one stage to the next, it is different and there's this adjustment. I'm curious, Lauren, I would think with the most experience transitioning, what were your mental preparations? You didn't have any, I don't know, from what I can hear, and I don't want to gather, I don't want to guess, but from what I can hear, the transition for you from student athlete to professional was tough in terms of mentally and who you were.
Yeah.
Were there any resources available for you to help with that?
You got to find them on your own, especially in softball. I'm like, it's difficult. We're just not, we haven't progressed to where we need to go at the professional level. I would say the toughest transition for me was when I retired due to injury, and there was so much unknown. Like, it was like, oh, like you're on the other side of retirement. You have the rest of your life. And I'm like, I've been told what to do, where to go, what to wear, what to eat, who to be, how to act, what to say, like, you know, how to interview. And it's like, you're told all of this stuff, and then it's like, okay, the world's yours. And I'm like, what if I don't want the world? You know what I mean? Like, what if I was like comfortable? And the uncertainty was so scary for me at first. And it led to a lot of partying. It led to a lot of drinking. It led to a lot of just keeping myself busy, because that's all we would do is just be busy. And now you just have this freedom. So I think rewiring yourself to be okay with the uncertainty, that was the biggest thing for me, was being like, okay, I don't have to know what championship. I'm not chasing a championship anymore, but I do want to be a better person. I want to be a better friend. I want to get healthier. I want to be, I want to be a good wife. I want to, like, there's so many new things that I can tackle. And some of it is just like, I want to figure out how to be okay. And like, that's enough. You know?
About that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
I want to figure out how to be okay.
Yep. Just be all right. Just be all right.
I love you.
It's still, it's a work in progress. That's for sure.
Okay.
Every day.
Michaela, I already asked Lauren. She said no. She's still old school. So when you're injured, are we going to the training room? What are we doing? She said no.
I mean, me and Eunice, my athletic trainer, I love her to death. And I've definitely gotten a lot better. Breaking your finger kind of does that for me.
Yeah.
I guess I gotta go to the
There's
training
no
room
choice,
now.
but, I definitely think, like, for a while there, like, I wouldn't even go to the cold and hot tubs, because I felt like it was like a nuisance to go over towards more like the main training facility, because that's where football and a couple other sports go to. So like, almost sometimes it feels like, oh, this is a football only space, like no other sports females are like supposed to be around.
That's
and
real.
like, it's like, that's what it feels like. And they've definitely tried their best to like change that environment, and it has gotten a lot better. And so now, like, still to this day, like, I'll text Eunice and be like, yeah, my finger's okay. Yeah, this is all right.
I'm all set. You'll be okay.
But
I'm
like,
fine.
Yeah, I'm like a ibuprofen, hot tub, cold tub girl. Like,
Okay.
Normatec. Like, I'm very like, I'm good. But like, I definitely think to this point now, like, I don't feel as like timid to speak up about like having problems, but I'll just be like a little bit, but like, I'm fine. But it feels like I still have to take that and be like, oh, my hip flexor is like, a little stretched out, but I'm fine. But I'm fine.
But I'm
You
okay.
have
Don't
to,
tell
like, you
coach.
have
I'm all
to
right.
still put that label of like, it's okay. You don't have to like worry about babying me, right? But it's also having that conversation.
The mental journey continues. Jocelyn, before we wrap, I'm curious, because that's the question. Like, are you okay with saying you're not okay? I use injury as the example and going to your trainer, but are you okay as a professional athlete saying I'm not okay?
I think now, yes. If you asked me my rookie year, no, I wouldn't have been okay with it. But I think now I've just gotten so much better with not only communicating with my people, but just communicating with myself. And like, I kind of do mental check-ins, like, what are things that I do that are normal, and what are things that I do that are out of the normal when I know I'm falling into a little bit of my own spiral. So I kind of just do those little mental check-ins every now and then, and it just kind of really helps me keep myself accountable. But I would say yes, I would be okay with saying I'm not okay now, but rookie year, no way.
It's all a journey, ladies. It's all a journey.
Before we wrap, what about you? Like,
Oh, no,
how do you, hold
I'm
on.
quick to say I'm not okay.
I was going to say it, because
Help.
if anybody at this
Help.
table has that spotlight, it's you. And you
I-
are like, you literally sit on TV and like, you are forward facing, if anybody on this table is.
No,
So
I
how do
think
you deal with that?
I've been in therapy. I've talked about this, which is why I love doing these podcasts in person. I've been in therapy for a very long time, on and off. You get different therapists, and it doesn't mean you're crazy. I come from a family that says you're crazy. If you, what do you need to talk to that lady for? Why are you telling that
Yeah,
lady
you're not
your
sick.
business?
Yeah.
You're fine. And I'm okay with saying I'm not okay. I have a very hard time when I'm not at the top of my game.
Yes.
I have a very hard time when I'm not winning at the top of my game. I go inward, and I'm like, I'm good. Just like all of us here. I'm here. I'm good. But privately, I'm dying a quiet death inside.
So human.
Help me. And I'm okay with asking for help. This is why these conversations are transparent and beautiful. No, I'm not even trying to do a tagline. Like, I really, truly appreciate you all, because you guys are so badass in such a beautiful way. You're beautiful on the outside. You're beautiful on the inside. There is such a level of respect that I have for each and every one of you, because how hard you work, the discipline that you all have. And I also respect you because you deal with so much that I don't even think we understand. I don't even think the media gets. I don't think the person who's watching you on TV gets. I think we get it, but we don't get it. So I thank you guys for being so transparent and so honest.
Thanks for asking
Yeah,
us the
thank you.
question.
Yeah. Okay, we did that. Woohoo.
Yes.
We wrapped. I guess we have to do something. Okay, we're
Wrap
good. We did it. Thank you for joining us on this episode of LG Transparent Conversations. For more episodes and to catch up on seasons 1 and 2, check out LG Transparent Conversations on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or at lg.com/us/transparent-conversations.